Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to another shift of Overtime. I have once again assembled a fantastic cast, so let's jump right into the sports. On Tuesday, the Kent State football team defeated the Akron Zips by a final score of 42-35. This was a huge win for the Flashes as it marked their first road win of the season, first road win since 2022, and first win against Akron since 2022 as well. Redshirt sophomore quarterback Drew DeShields dominated in this one, throwing for over 300 yards and tossing 5 touchdowns, all to different wide receivers and a few tight ends in there as well. The game was ultimately decided on the first play of overtime when DeShields connected with wide receiver Ardell Banks, and that was ball game. Josh, so glad to have you back, the Cowboy himself. So, Coach Carney said it in his press conference before the game that this game was viewed as a stepping stone for both programs, for the Zips and the Flashes, and the Flashes took that stepping stone. Moving forward, what does this mean for KSU's football team?
I think it was a very, very impressive game. It boosts a lot of confidence. Obviously, you win the rival week. It gives you the confidence that you could do anything. I mean, this is your rival. You haven't beaten them since 2022. That's a long time. They finally beat them, and not only beat them, but they looked impressive. It was a great offensive performance. The defense obviously needs a little improvement, which I'm sure we'll get into, but I really think it was an impressive win for the Flashes.
I totally agree with you. Across all the college football scene, and we'll get into it later in the show, there have been some great games. Oregon at Penn State. Also, we had Penn State at UCLA was a great game. Penn State against Indiana, a lot of great games here so far. But I think this was probably the best game we've seen in any part of the country.
Yeah.
That was an amazing environment right there. And, you know, one thing I love about the Flash is this team involves so many receivers. That was the problem last year, honestly, on offense, because you had two guys in Florea and McCray who could really do well as receivers, but your tight end room was lacking.
Yep.
Your running back room was really just Garcia behind an offensive line that was struggling. Now it's like 1 year later, and you have a multitude of guys, Darelis Clark, Tarek Mulder, Cade Wolford, all guys you can trust. And this is an offense that's going to have to win back-to-back games to make that bowl game appearance. That'd be their first in 4 years. Josh, do you think they can do it?
I think they can. Obviously, we're talking about the wide receivers. I would say this year we're almost spoiled because we're able to worry now that we're going to lose a lot of these guys next year because of how good they've played. Obviously, it's good for them, and we gotta congratulate them for that. But we're spoiled. They've been really well this year.
That was a good point because I didn't ask this to Carney yet. I'm trying my best to figure out how to word it, but you're right. Because in Ohio, there's obviously Ohio State, Cincinnati, plenty of good teams, even Toledo right next door in the conference that could poach a guy like Darelis Clark, could poach a guy like arguably Drew DeShields. I don't think it'll happen. I think the chemistry has been building up there, especially I think Drew really values how Carney has helped them through this process. You know, you lose Kenny Burns in a cloud of mysterious aura. Well, we know what happened. I just don't even want to get into it. Excuse me.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't think it's very mysterious.
Yeah. And then Drew ultimately ends up leading this team to success. Just talk about Drew, honestly, because what a season from number 12.
I mean, obviously he came back from injury. I don't know if anyone really saw this coming in any facet. He had an incredible game, 5 touchdowns, 17 for 25 with 317 yards. Obviously, you can talk about the fumble later on, which could have been a big point, which I will get into in a second. But he recovered. He had a great game. But speaking of the fumble, right, I want to ask you, because personally I'm worried about this. We've seen multiple examples now of Kent State, them almost blowing a game. We think back to the first game against Buffalo, where they had the lead with, one drive, and Buffalo took the lead right back. We think back to the Ball State game. They just blew that one. They almost lost an Akron game when they were up 35-17 in the fourth. That's insane. Are you worried about this at all?
I am, but we've also seen games like Bowling Green where they actually end up coming back. We see games like Merrimack, they come back. Against the Minutemen, obviously that's probably going to go down as one of the worst FBS D1 single-season teams we've ever seen.
Right next to the
2024 Kent State team. But I am more concerned about the secondaries play because they forced a turnover. Terrence Miller gets the interception on Ben Finley, who had a really great game for Akron. But we also saw him get burnt, not just him, but other members of the secondary get burnt, especially by Marcel Williams, who almost ends up breaking Akron's catches single-game record. But you know, the two upcoming opponents aren't known for their passing attack, especially Northern Illinois, who's having a very woeful year. That is my area of concern. But, break down these next two games. What are the chances for Kent State?
I think they're good chances. We look at the Akron game. I think they kind of show what the blueprint is, right? They had 59 pass attempts that game.
Yep.
And it worked. He threw one interception, which it wasn't a great interception, but 59 passing attempts, you probably expect more than one interception. So I think they definitely got to lock in on that because other teams will see that and will continue to exploit that, I think.
And then another positive for the Flashes against the Central Michigan Chippewas, who as of right now have a winning record. You get them at home, which Kent State does great at home, and that's a team that Akron has beaten.
Yeah.
So if you can say, Kent State has already beaten Akron, who beat Central Michigan. I honestly think that we could see ourselves
going bowling.
Me and you. We hopefully videographer and writer. That'd be great. Well, Josh, we're approaching the third season of the Professional Women's Hockey League, and Lexi Blatnick is coming off Couch Island to break it down next on Overtime. Welcome back. We spend lots of time on this show talking about the recent dynasties across sports, like the Los Angeles Dodgers and the Kansas City Chiefs. But over in the PWHL, the Minnesota Frost have won back-to-back titles, and the league has been around for just that, 2 seasons. Their captain, Kendon Coyne, scored 24 points and 12 goals last season en route to Minnesota's second title in 2 years. So, Lexi, obviously, Minnesota, probably the hottest team in all of sports right now, other than the Los Angeles Dodgers, right? Because Kansas City, and they end up losing their three-peat to the Eagles. The NBA has changed hands with their championships each year. But there's definitely some contenders. Ottawa, for example, they take. I should say for the audience, it's not like Minnesota came in 4 games in a row and just went, good morning, good night, goodbye.
Yeah.
It was 2-1 every game, and it goes up. It was 4 games, but there's always the closest of hockey.
Yes.
Do you think this is a year where we expect Minnesota to just go right back, get that three-peat?
Who's to say? I can't say for sure because it's preseason started
yesterday,
literally. But the Frost won against the New York. So
they did.
I will say this though. This is the hardest road in those past 2 years that they will have to get there, solely because of their roster changes, right? So this year, the PWHL introduced 2 teams, the Seattle Torrents and the Vancouver Goldeneye, which I have some thoughts on.
Okay.
But so during that, they lost 4 players, 2 of which were defenders. Claire Thompson, she won gold in Team Canada in the 2022 Olympics.
It's a huge loss.
Huge loss. She also holds the record for most points as a defender in the Women's Ice Hockey Olympics. Getting into her stats from last season, she played 30 games, racked 4 goals, 14 assists. She's ranked 20th in the league for points. She notched 27 block shots. So she's definitely a heavy hitter as far as defenders go. And then the second defender was Sophie Jakes. She's actually an Ohio State alumna. Fun fact, trivia for you all. She played in 25 games, 7 goals, 15 assists, and matched Thompson's 27 block shots. Sorry about that. And then they also lost their forwards, Brooke McWig and Denisa Krishova. McWig had 8 goals, 7 assists, and Krishova had 4 goals and 5 assists. So not as crucial per se as their defenders, but it's definitely something to keep in mind as far as depth goes.
Well, I think that's huge, especially with the loss of Thompson.
Yeah.
I mean, how many times are you going to get a chance at a player who's a gold medal award winner and also a scoring forward or scoring defender in hockey? She seems like a great player, and especially for Vancouver as an expansion team to go out and get her. I'm assuming it was probably the draft.
Yeah, it was I wrote it down somewhere. It was the exclusive signing period, and then they lost the forwards to the draft.
Okay. So that's tough for Minnesota, especially, that's sort of the blessing and the curse about having a newer league that's slowly expanding but only has less than 10 teams.
Yeah.
You're going to lose your talent. Overall, though, I like Montreal and I like Ottawa. Those teams, especially because obviously, a lady like Claire, she's from Canada, and you get these Canadian teams with Canadian players. When you look across both leagues, the NHL we talked about last week and the PWHL, we haven't seen a Canadian team take the championship in either league. Obviously, PWHL only 2 seasons, but the NHL since '93 when Montreal won it. So I'm looking for Montreal, the Victory, to take it actually this season, because why not? You know, you had a good year in the playoffs last year, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh
yeah,
God,
so
that was so long ago. I can't.
yeah, you make it and then you lose. You lose to Ottawa after getting into the playoffs, but all of these teams are young. They just started their program histories, so why not Montreal? And if not Montreal, I would also expect Ottawa, especially
Really?
what we're hearing about with all these talented players leaving Minnesota. I think a Canadian team is finally going to get themselves a hockey championship. What about you, Lexi?
I'm still on the Canada train. I'm just choosing the brand new shiny Vancouver Goldeneye. They have a good defensive core with In Thompson and Jakes. They also have Hillary Knight and Sarah Nurse.
That's
Two
awesome.
super
Huge.
heavy hitters. I think Hillary Knight led this league last year in goals and points and stuff. So it's just certainly something to. But I am certainly questioning your take on it. Do you see the Frost at all making the playoffs?
Well, for sure, you know, you never underestimate a team that's proven themselves, but lots of missed talent. But I think a Canadian team's finally going to get it done. Lexi, great job as usual. And we were also talking about that Blue Jackets game that was very good.
Oh my God, that was fantastic.
Well, Lucas and Lucas are going to come off the desk to talk some college football, and they're going to debate as well next on Overtime. Well, it's another week and another huge weekend in the Southeastern Conference. Tomorrow at 3:30, the Oklahoma Sooners will try to shock the country in Tuscaloosa as Ty Simpson in the Alabama Crimson Tide will welcome in John Mateer. And later at 7:30, Texas is going to attempt to boost their college football playoff resume with a huge road upset over the Georgia Bulldogs. So, Lucas Foote and Lucas Cochran, the battle of the two Lukai, we're calling them, the plural form. Wow, that pronunciation was almost difficult as watching a game coached by Brian Kelly. So, like I said, huge games in the SEC this week, but you two in the production of our show today, instead of doing game previews, you both wanted to claim a little argument here. Just so you know, the loser of this argument has to change their name. And the topic is today, who should be the number 1 team? So, Lucas Cochran, you've been here.
Let me tell you this. The preseason AP poll got one thing right, and the number 1 team's coming out of Texas. Texas A&M has arguably been the best team in the nation so far. People are going to diss on Notre Dame. One of their 2 losses could have been against the number 1 team in the nation. Then they just whooped LSU 49-25, and they had an impressive victory over Missouri. Yes, the game was close in the second half, but they pulled away and they prevailed and showed that it is no fluke and they are legit. And Marcel Reed has arguably looked like one of the best quarterbacks in the entire nation all season long.
Marcel Reed, definitely a candidate for the Heisman Trophy this season. But another team down in Columbus has a Heisman quarterback potential of their own. So, Lucas Foote, go ahead.
I think the number 1 team in the country is the current number 1 team in the country, the Ohio State Buckeyes. What have they done to not be the number 1 team? Yes, Texas A&M has that number 1 strength of schedule in all of the country, but Ohio State is just behind them at number 3. And Ohio State has literally only allowed 7.2 points per game. That is nearly unheard of to have a defense that good, especially in the Big Ten. Obviously, I'll give Lucas something here. The SEC is the best conference in all of college football. That I'll agree with. But Texas A&M, they haven't really played those top teams in the SEC, so they haven't been tested as much as Ohio State maybe against that number 1 Texas at the time.
See, I don't agree with that. I think Ohio State, yes, the defense, I'm not going to take it. They have the best defense in the country and arguably one of the greatest of all time. That will be that. But their offense is what I'm looking at. They scored 40 points 2 times this year. Once against Minnesota and once against Grambling State. Expected. But red flags, they scored 24 against a team like Washington, who lost to Wisconsin. Their leading passer that game was their punter. I'm not joking. There are red flags all over. All season long, they hadn't allowed anything. Illinois got blown out by Indiana, 63-10 or something. Illinois scored 16 versus Ohio State. Ohio State leaked in that game a little bit, and I think there are a lot of red flags. Yes, they entered as one of the best teams in the nation. They're the defending national champions. I don't think they've done anything to lose the number one spot, but at this moment, I'm taking Texas A&M.
That's a good point you bring up, Cochran, is that, is it that they aren't as good as an Indiana or they aren't as good as a Texas A&M? Maybe they, don't have the offensive capabilities, or is it that Ohio State is just that dominant that they have the wiggle room to sort of coast? Not exactly coast, but maybe not put up your best performance. There's also the argument that maybe you don't want to tire out your guys. What's your response to that, Lucas Foote?
I think you have to look at the eye test. Julian Sayin, Heisman candidate, alongside Texas A&M's quarterback, but Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate on both sides of the offense, you can pass to whoever you want to, whenever you want to. Bo Jackson, C.J. Donaldson, and James People in the running game, they have so many options that they don't need to score that 50 points a game versus these Big Ten teams. Yes, does that look nice? Yes, but I think what they do on defense makes up for that, because you can score 40 points, but if you're only allowing 0 or 7 points a game, that's still a big blowout.
So my question is, are we saying that they are capable of scoring that and they're just choosing not to? Because in my opinion, if that's the case, that means they're not playing like the best team in the nation. If they are able to do it, they should do it, but they haven't done it. Therefore, they're not playing as the best team in the nation. And I don't think it's fair to say, yes, on paper, they're the best team in the nation. That's what we're looking at right now. But they're not out there every day. They've scored about 30 almost every game except the Washington game and the Texas game. That's impressive. But they haven't scored about 40. They're kind of in that lodge. And they're playing teams like Minnesota, Washington, Wisconsin. I'm not thoroughly impressed. Penn State, they allowed points to 38-14. They just lost their head coach at the time. Their quarterback, I'm pretty sure he's a freshman stepping in.
Yep.
I mean, I'm not impressed in games like that.
Well, it's interesting, though, because if you look at last season with Will Howard at quarterback, they weren't necessarily blowing off the doors of teams either, especially in Big Ten Conference, if I'm not mistaken by that. And then we saw it in Tennessee, against Tennessee, and we saw it against Oregon. They went crazy. But honestly, guys, secretly, I think the best team may be those Alabama Crimson Tide down in Tuscaloosa. Well, great stuff as usual for you two guys, but we're going to try a little new thing here. We've got Josh and Connor. They're going to break down last night's game in New England. So, boys, let's see what we got here. How did that game shake out?
All right, thanks, Gage. I want to talk about TreVeyon Henderson first. So let's get into this one. He had an incredible night. 3 touchdowns here, 2 rushing, and 1 receiving touchdown. When you look at last week's game 2 against the Bucs, he had another 2 touchdowns. Here we go. We're going to start out here in the second. Look at him dodging and ducking and getting into the end zone. That's his first of the night. Now this next highlight, this one gets me really excited. Look at this cut. Now just look at the offensive line here. They all come together and they push him in. That's football. You got to love that, Connor. Now the last one here. He is going to find his way. He's going to sneak his way into the end zone. Look, the defense is just going to lose track of him through the end zone here, and there he is, wide
how about
open,
a third
his
one?
And so obviously, Connor, the Jets are going to jet. What do you have?
So obviously we see here Justin Fields. He's looking. He's holding on. He's going to fire a deep one to a wide open John Mechie to put the Jets only down by 7, and that will be a touchdown there. Now, unfortunately, the Jets decided to jet as Justin Fields fumbled the ball, giving the Patriots pretty much the win, even though, as you see, there's 7.5 minutes left. And the final score ended up being 27-17. Now, unfortunately, the Jets are not doing that good.
Let's head to the desk.
Great stuff indeed. So that was really another continuation of this Patriot dominance. I'm totally fine in saying this. I think they're the best team in football.
Patriots.
Because all sides of the ball, you have a great defense. You have I'm so finally glad that Mike Vrabel and the Patriots offense decided to just give Trey Henderson the ball, because we saw it all during college that he's a dominant player.
Yes.
It's an interesting year for sure, though, because I feel like none of the teams are too convincing, really.
That's true.
No.
There's not
And
one
there's always
team.
at least one crazy upset per week.
Yeah.
And, there are a bunch of other teams, too, that, it's one half of the ball they're good, the other half, not so
Yes,
good.
That's very true. Especially the Denver Broncos have a phenomenal defense, but each week Bronco fans are saying, is Sean Payton capable of calling a modern NFL offense? I think that's a question we'll definitely find out. Two huge divisional games I want to focus on this week. In the AFC, we have the Denver Broncos going against the Kansas City Chiefs. And over in the NFC West, we have the Seattle Seahawks and the Los Angeles Rams. Connor, I'll start. You choose your pick. What game are you really keeping an eye on?
I am really going to keep an eye on the Seahawks and Rams game. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I see this as a game of the year potential because you have two of the best offenses in the country with two amazing defenses led by Sean McVay and Mike McDonald. But for me, in this game, I think the Seahawks got the edge. I mean, their offense, they have obviously Sam Darnold, JSN, who's looking like the best receiver in the country right now. And then on defense, you had DeMarcus Overshown, 2 forced fumbles that he took to the house.
Lawrence, my bad.
DeMarcus Lawrence. Thank you. Sorry.
You're good, bro.
But yeah, I think the Seahawks are going to take the edge here because I just see them having a better defense, and their offense is just amazing.
Well, Josh, Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, there are weeks where it does look great, especially when they get Kareem Hunt going, when you get the veteran Travis Kelce involved. But overall, this is an offense that has degressed. It has gotten pretty much worse each year. Do they have it in them? And this will be a tough task against a white-hot Broncos team.
So here's what I'm concerned about, right? We talked about the defense earlier. I don't know if the Chiefs' offense has the firepower anymore to beat that defense. I mean, Bo Nix and the Broncos' offense really isn't anything special. Actually, if you look at the stats, they're very similar. Bo Nix has 18 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. Mahomes had 17 touchdowns with 5 interceptions. I just don't know if the Chiefs' offense has it in them to beat them. Kareem Hunt and Isaiah Pacheco, maybe like 4 years ago would have been a great backfield, but not in 2025. I don't really like either of them anymore, and I just don't think the receivers on the Chiefs are going to be able to get going against this Broncos defense.
I agree, but I want to say one thing about Denver, and we talked about this, me and you, Connor, last week. Another win for them on last Thursday. They get a pretty much cheap, I'm going to call it a cheap win against the Las Vegas Raiders.
A snooze fest.
Yeah, a snooze fest even. They win by 3 against a team that has not been competitive.
No one likes Geno Smith anymore.
That was not very convincing.
But they have a great record. I can't deny that. But overall, in that division, if the Chiefs can pull out a win this weekend, who do you think wins the AFC West, Connor? Just real quickly.
That's a tough one. I think I might have to go with the Chargers. The Chargers, I think they've got it in them this year. They look really good.
Definitely overcoming injuries, though, in Los Angeles. But, they got Vidal, obviously, Jay Herbert. What do you think, Josh, about that division?
I like the Chargers, too, but I'm not going to pick them since Connor picked them. I'm going to go with the Broncos still. I've been the type of guy that...
Do you think they're for real, though, really quickly?
The Broncos? I don't think they're going to win anything in the playoffs. I think they can win the division, but the Chiefs are not the same anymore. They don't pass the eye test. It's pretty clear. Maybe they'll win one, but I think the Broncos got it.
Honestly, that'll be very interesting to watch in the playoffs. Well, stick around for our final minute where we're going to talk about the recent gambling issues once again for another final minute, this time over in Major League Baseball. Next on Overtime. Welcome to the final minute of our show, and today we'll be discussing the Emmanuel Clase and Luis Ortiz betting scandal. Now, of course, this strikes pretty close to home, as with the Cleveland Guardians organization being up the road. We report on that a lot, and that was really hard. We know a lot of Guardians fans, especially in our families and stuff like that. Just really shocking. Both of these gentlemen are facing I think up to 65 years in prison now. Knowing the legal system, that'll probably be pleaded down a little bit. We'll see, though. These guys were throwing and betting anywhere from, fights between animals and just generally throwing balls instead of, competitive strikes. Non-competitive pitches are what they're called. Lucas F., I'll start with you. What were your reactions to this?
So back in August, we'll go back to Ortiz first. Back in July, when you first hear it, you're about, oh, that's kind of weird because this is a starting pitcher, could be future the Guardians rotation. You're like, okay, that's interesting. And then we don't hear about Clase at all. And then random day in August, it comes out, or end of July, right before the trade deadline comes out. Emmanuel Clase has been suspended in the same investigation. You're like, whoa, this is kind of serious because this is now your all-star closer. This is going to affect you the rest of the season, and it did in the final 2 months. So it was just kind of shocking at first.
And then you guys as well, Lucas. Looks like these two are about to morph together.
Look, there's nothing wrong with me and Lucas being a little close.
We're just so close.
We enjoy spending time with each other.
Josh, what was your reaction? Because honestly, I was frustrated. I can't believe a guy as talented as Clase had given up, and then it also had questioned. This guy in 2024 has a season that Mariano Rivera would have paid for, and in the playoffs he just absolutely bottoms out as early as Game 2 of the ALDS when Kerry Carpenter hits that home run. What were your reactions? Did that make you think maybe he was throwing games?
My first reaction was definitely like you, the playoffs last season when he did sell the games. Well, I guess we don't know if he sold on purpose, but he blew the games realistically, and it was such a shock because he never was like that in the regular season. I find it hard to believe still, based on what the information is, that he did do that on purpose, just considering the fact that he was betting on balls at the first pitch of the inning, almost meaningless pitches. I don't think he cheated in the playoffs like that, but yeah, I don't know.
Anybody disagree with that? Anybody think he was doing some dubious stuff?
It's
Who's to
very
say?
hard to say.
I mean, it's really hard to say.
You can't just. Did he have bad days during the year like that? No, not really. And he had one of the greatest seasons of all time. Now, all of a sudden, you have bad
and
games.
then randomly he just decides to not do good.
Like either the lights were
Overall.
too bright, but at the same time, the lights are bright every night for him if you're a closer. So the pressure is on.
Clash is better in the
You're under a lot of
playoffs
pressure
before
as a
too.
closer.
Yes.
It's not his first time.
I think going back to the 2024 postseason, you got to look at as well how much he was used during the season. Because Gaddis, Smith, and Clase were used over 70 times in the regular season, and that takes a toll on your arm. So maybe there wasn't anything crazy going on in the playoffs, but that could be a reason of why he performed the way he did.
He
also was an
performing like he
all-star
was-
as well,
Yeah,
so
he was.
had just
He was one
a
of the best
little more.
closers, if not the best closer.
Two-time
I mean, he was runner-up for Cy Young, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It was
I
like he
remember
maxed
that.
out his
For
high
Cy Young.
career and then restarted.
He ran out of
all a sudden.
VC.
He ran out of VC is crazy, actually. I guess I'm more of a bias against gambling. We're not supposed to admit our biases, but I'll be the first to admit that I think, I would really love every league dial back their attention to gambling. We saw ESPN unravel their ESPN bet. We will see less and less of that. We even saw it on air when they were talking about the Chauncey Billups issue. They took the ESPN ad for the app out of their lower third, and then also Ohio, the state of Ohio, were reducing prop bets, player prop bets. All of these steps are heading towards the direction of maybe less gambling, but U5, do you think there should be anything more done about that, Connor? Do you think maybe there should be more regulation for gambling?
I think there should be, because that's what a lot of players do in their free time, is that they like to gamble a lot. And most sports leagues, they have no problem if they do it outside of their league, but when it's in their league, that's when they step their foot down. So really, I think that there should be, but you just never know how far sports leagues are willing to go.
I think I'm just gonna take a view back and just make a general statement. As I'm sure I've mentioned many times, I am the only one here who's 21, right? And I can't.
today.
Right, and I'm legally allowed to bet, and I'm gonna be the first to say, yeah, I've thrown a couple $5 on, a non-consequential game, right? But I will say, it's kind of thrown in your face a lot. Once you make that first bet,
Yes.
I get notifications from DraftKings, FanDuel, almost every hour on the hour, hey, here's $5 free.
Yeah, I was
Go
gonna say,
throw,
think of
and
the
it's
free
just
bets.
ridiculous.
They fish for people.
It's very predatory.
They force you.
Definitely. Great conversation. Yeah. Well, everyone, that's it for our Shift Up Overtime. For more sports coverage, head to KentonStater.com and tune into Sports Corner Monday at 8. On behalf of everyone here at the desk and at the couch for this night, thank you very much for watching.